Yeah.
It's fake news anyway. If there is some there, it's just fake news. So right now, the term fake news until after the election when Donald Trump won. Now it's just like it's always been there, that in our vernacular. No, it hasn't. It's actually what the Democrats started using to stop conservatives from having the power that they've gained and control on social media, and two, to deter attention away from whatever the smoke is and their corruption. The Seth Rich stuff is fake news. Fact that John Podesta spirit cooks is fake news. Just change the subject.
Oh yeah, yeah, and I'm so glad you brought this up, the Pizzagate, man. I got to tell you, I had two Rolling Stone reporters in my office. Never again will I ever allow that to happen. Shame on me. What the heck was I thinking? And when it turned out to be, a hit piece. I'm some idiot. A quote basement dweller, which is not true, pushing a fake story, this fake Pizzagate. And suddenly now today, I'm being blamed in legal venues for causing or having contributed to the shooting of Comet Ping Pong. In addition, of course, to being a Russian agent, but peddling a fake story in Pizzagate. I said all that to say this: Pizzagate should not be forgotten, should it? I mean, you were ahead of the game on this.
Here's the fact, right? I didn't become someone that was born into a Democrat family to a conservative journalist that's interned at the White House. That I didn't get this far, and there's farther to go, but I didn't make it to a lot of places that I have been by not thoroughly investigating what's going on. So I'm not just going to go and naively just regurgitate, Pizzagate, spirit cooking, John Podesta, da, da, da. No, actually, when I started learning more, I was just quite stunned when you start to learn who Marina Abramovic is. And the fact that there's ties between her and the Clinton campaign officials and Clinton, and then you see the art from, what's his name? It's not James Alefantis, Dianoso, the art that's in Comet Ping Pong in that pizza store.
They should be arrested just on bad taste alone.
Not even bad taste. It's demented. I've never seen, if you look at Tony Podesta's art collection, this is the most sickening. There's no words for it. I've never seen such demented art in my life. It's just pure evil. And this is the leader, the elitists of the Democrat Party, that they were inches away from being in power, and we're being complacent. And it's natural. Politics is tiring, and people don't want to engage in politics, so they don't care about politics until some tragedy happens, and then we quickly forget about we forget about it all and go back to watching reality TV shows and eating Doritos. But the fact is that, there's stuff that I think as journalists need to keep digging and finding out more information. Pizzagate's definitely one thing. We need to keep following up on what's going on with the Hagmann brothers scandal. We're still ongoing with the Russia probe, but let's go back to some of the basis that started this probe. The dossier claims that Donald Trump hacked the DNC server with Russia, but the DNC destroyed the server and gave the replicas of what was on the server to CrowdStrike. Replicas meaning they can select they're going to give to the FBI or not. And yet, there's no answers to this. There's no accountability. But the Russia probe's still going on. The very premise of it is it's scandal ridden. What's in the dossier is scandal ridden, and I think there's something else. Conservatives have to do more. I don't know whether it comes from the leadership or us constituents and the people, but it's like we win, but we never truly win. There's a culture war that we're fighting on so many fronts, and there's it's more than just legislative battles, and that's a lot has unfolded in the last 2 weeks.
And you were right when you talked about the Pizzagate really when that information started coming out, that is when the fake news narrative was pushed. And then Trump turned that around on these news networks that were trying to push this out. And I actually saw an interview John Podesta did, I think on Monday, where he even says the Russian interference from the Mueller indictments could have swayed the election for Donald Trump over Hillary. Obviously, he is a joke, and this Russia talk is a joke. But I want to ask you, you mentioned the servers never being turned over to the FBI, only CrowdStrike got to look at the servers. We had Bill Gertz on the other day. How can people, and even in the intelligence agencies, say that it was Russia who hacked the DNC and Hillary Clinton servers when they would not even turn those servers over for examination? So how do we get to Russia from only CrowdStrike looking at the servers?
No, not how we know now. We know now the degree that the FBI was, anti-Trump.
Mm-hmm.
We know now, but it just makes no sense. How does the FBI say it's okay? You don't have to give us the server. We'll accept replicas.
Yeah.
I mean, that if the FBI comes to our house and demands we turn over our devices and we deny them, I think I'm probably going to end up in cuffs and looking in a jail
mm-hmm.
cell for a couple until I go on get paid bail.
Yeah, it's amazing that this thing hasn't fallen apart in the media, in the world of politics, and that the Russia investigation of Robert Mueller into Donald Trump and supposedly Trump-Russia collusion is still ongoing. I mean, if anything, we should have a special counsel, and we kind of do, at least in the Inspector General, looking at the Hillary Clinton email scandal, but from Uranium One to the FISA court abuses, I mean, so many more. We could sit here and talk about the Democratic and left-wing Hillary Clinton scandals all evening long, the unmasking. And it's just, I imagine you went through this at CPAC. People have to be very frustrated that all these scandals are not only out in the open, but exposed, but no actions being taken by Jeff Sessions or anybody else.
Yeah, and the thing is, too, it seems that Democrats always have they capitalize off of tragedies.
Mm-hmm.
So now let's just turn the page on the fact that 13 Russians were indicted as soon as we started for stuff that has nothing to do with collusion. As soon as we start to see it all, their whole narrative just collapse, right? Everything's falling down, and now there might be indictments, and the liberal, even some of our liberal base is catching on to the fact that we lied. So thank God, they must say, the Democrats say, thank God there was a shooting in the school. Now we get to talk about gun control, and while Donald Trump hates children because he wants teachers to be armed. They get to change the subject. I think every time, it was Charleston before that, and they get to change the subject and capitalize off a tragedy. So it's the funny thing right now. It's like, I think someone I know made a joke. Every time Democrats are in trouble, someone dies.
That's
very well said.
It's a good point. Yeah, it's sad, but it's true. Follow Elisa Powell on Twitter. Kiddo, I know you had a long day. Of course, being dragged through the John and Joe's Daily Show was probably no good. I'm kidding around with them, but in closing, your closing thoughts here on a Saturday night as you
Saturday night
or Friday night as you wrap up from CPAC. I don't know what day this is.
It's really, it's really tragic to it's not just to see people getting shot in school. Every time you hear one of these mass shootings that goes on, it's really, it's a lot to deal with. I think Sandy Hook was just it just stays with you, and we all kind of desensitize ourselves to it. But the fact that the Democrats this week are, like I said, trying to deter attention away from the Russia probe. It's part of it. It helps them. And they're capitalizing off of this tragedy again, promoting gun control and using these students as tools to infringe on our Second Amendment rights. But like you just saw on my Twitter page, what's the root cause of these mass shootings? I think that these young men are troubled. Maybe they're not even evil. Maybe they're delusional. Maybe they're possessed. We define schizophrenia in this country. That's something that we're not really giving enough thought to. I think that mental illness sorely needs to be addressed. I think that there's probably no one. Everyone has someone that's on some kind of farm that has bipolar these days. It seems like everyone has someone in their family that's diagnosed with bipolar these days, or on some pharmaceutical meds, psychotropic meds. And I think this needs to be looked into. Americans need to wake up and stop blaming when these things happen. Start really thinking about how mental health is addressed. I mean, what do we really know about psych wards? What happens when you're mentally ill? What's the treatment for it? What are the drugs that are prescribed? Because when I see these shootings happen, I've done it in research, not extensively, not regularly, but I've looked at what happens when people commit these someone stabs their parent or someone goes in a killing spree. They all have one thing in common for the most part. They've taken these psychotropic drugs recently, or they stopped taking it and started taking it a day or week before this happened. And so I think this is something that sorely needs to be addressed, and I hope it does. And meanwhile, we've got to learn to, stay diligent and not forgetting about the Russia probe, not forgetting about the scandals, and soak it all in. It's a lot, but we can't let them turn the page and get away with the corruption either.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly. We need to fight. We've been too tolerant. We've been too quiet. We need to fight back. We need to stand up and gather, help each other up and really become a more formidable force, because we can win on the numbers. I believe we can win on the platform, on the agenda, and on the numbers as well.
I believe truth is very powerful, but the last time we saw a movement in the streets, I mean, a lot of conservatives gathering, was the Tea Party, right after Obama won, and that became a racist movement.
So be it.
And you're not going to get that organization until Trump is no longer in office, or unless he's removed or whatever. You're not. People, as you said, people are complacent. Yeah. And unless
it's really us for us to, it's up to people like us or people who are paying attention to organize things and start a grassroots movement. It's not impossible, but the momentum's maybe not there right now. But when will it be?
Yeah,
that's what I've been asking.
It's too late.
Right. We need to strike before it's too late. We need to, we've been good at warning others, and even on the forefront. We're at the end of the segment. Alicia, thank you so much for your gracious gift, multiple gifts of time this week, for your reporting from CPAC. We so appreciate you and everything you do.
I'm grateful to be on your show, guys, and keep up the great work you all do.
Thank you. And we ask people to support Alicia Powell. Follow her on Twitter as well. Folks, we're at the network break. Going to be right back. Stay right where you're at. And welcome back to this edition, the final segment of the Hagmann Report on this Friday. Coming up is Ben Shields. He's the guy behind something called The Right Media. And that's an interesting website if you go to therightmedia.org. That's therightmedia.org. There you'll find some really interesting works of investigative journalism by our next guest, because honest journalism shouldn't be a contradiction. That's the tagline of therightmedia.org. And in his work, in his investigative journalism, a lot of discussion with respect to the Mueller investigation. And those people who are watching this show and tuned into my morning show know that I believe the most critical story of our lifetime, and that's saying a lot considering all of the media, all of the headlines, the most important story of our lifetime is what we're seeing happen right now. The coup against the American people, the coup against President Donald Trump. And part of that, as a parcel to that, is Robert Mueller, this independent counsel, and the opposing side, which is the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence and the Senate Judiciary Committee and the House Intelligence Committee, looking at the rotten corruption within the FBI, the Department of Justice, looking at the weaponization of the political process by Hillary Clinton by Obama, the Marxist Obama, and by the